started out real soft, and then it got real loud. It was a real strong howling of wind, but it was quiet outside. And a voice came out of the howling, and it says, "Come here."
On October of 1988, Unsolved Mysteries aired an episode that was so freaky, so terrifying, that I remember being a kid and having nightmares for weeks on end. I could not sleep. And apparently I wasn't the only one, because there are people today that still remember, and it scares the hell out of them. It's known as the missing episode because Unsolved Mysteries very rarely replayed this episode. It was that freaky. And tonight we're going to take a closer look at the Tallman House of Horror. So enjoy. Alan and Debbie Tallman purchased a bunk bed from a secondhand thrift shop. The bed was assembled in the basement of their home. After the bunk bed was moved upstairs, it marked the beginning of 9 months of pure terror, first starting with the children, and then reaching the mother and father.
You're getting so big for Daddy.
I was afraid for my life. I also was very afraid for my family. I had visions of coming home from work and actually seeing my family brutally murdered or just laying there dead.
Hurry up! Come on!
Well, yeah, it was our dream house because, it was something that we figured we were going to be there for a long time, and it was a dream house. After we moved into the house, it seemed like our children were sick all the time. We had them into the doctor's office. Sometimes I would have all 3 of them in a week.
Later in 1987, Debbie and Alan moved the bunk bed upstairs. That night, their son Danny was sleeping in a room next to the room with the bunk bed. Danny received an old clock radio from his parents, and on this night, it took on a personality of its own.
Came running out in the living room, and he says, "But Mom and Dad," he says, "I seen it, the dial moved." He said the indicator went from one side to the radio to the other. And we kind of looked at each other and says, well, if you're going to have a fit with the radio and cause this kind of ruckus, we'll just take the radio out, because that stuff just does not happen.
A few weeks later, Alan Tallman had an experience of his own while painting the basement.
My wife called me up for dinner, so I just laid the brush, and I was going to return after I ate my lunch. And after dinner time was over, I went downstairs, down cellar. was in the paint pail with the bristles sticking up right in the paint pail. I figured there was something strange why this happened, why the brush got into the paint pail, but I wouldn't accept that my house was haunted.
Got red eyes.
At one time, my daughter had talked about a witch behind her door, and the fire. A lot of it was fire, and we had never mentioned it to our son at all. And then I'd say probably about a month later, he had said, "Mom, I saw an old lady standing by my door." And he said that she glowed like fire. At this point, I began to think that our house was probably haunted.
Sit down. Let's talk all this out here.
I'd known them about a year and a half when they called me to come and visit with them about what was going on in the house.
Is this normal? I mean,
I believe that my initial analysis of the entity being in the spiritual realm, the occult realm, the demonic, if you will, was accurate, and I still believe it's accurate.
The Tallmans claim they never had a moment of peace. Doors and cabinet doors would bang open and shut. Voices would call out to them from the darkness.
Mom?
Strange entities persisted. The children were absolutely terrified. A week before Christmas, Danny saw something again that completely terrified him.
it's okay. Nobody's here. You're okay.
I've done everything that I can.
I was like a wild man running around in my house, and I couldn't get no control over it.
Come out of there! Show yourself to me!
I started yelling on the top of my voice. I said, "What's ever in our house, would you please leave my children alone? And if you want to fight, fight with me."
3 weeks later, on January the 7th, Alan Tallman returned home from working the late shift around 2 a.m. Outside the garage, he heard an eerie, howling sound. He went to investigate.
It started out real soft, and then it got real loud. It was a real strong howling wind, but it was quiet outside. And a voice came out of the howling, and it says, "Come here." I ran around the sides of the house looking to see if anybody was there, and I couldn't see nothing. So I went back to the house steps, and the vacuum of the wind started up again. It started out real soft, and it got real loud. And the voice said, "Come here," and it just kept on saying, "Come here, come here." And I focused onto the garage door, and I seen a glow. And I run. I got scared, and I ran. And I ran to the house, and I opened the door, and I set my lunch pail on the floor. I locked the door, and I stood there for a brief couple of seconds, and I says, "Oh my God, my garage is on fire." And I ran back out on the porch, and I looked towards the garage, and there was nothing. The garage was just as normal as was I came home from work. So I quick went back in the house, and I closed the door and deadbolted the door and locked the door. After I had the door locked, I reached down to pick up my lunch pail, and this thing hurtled right through the living room.
He came home that night, and he was just running around the room. I mean, literally running. He ran in the bedroom, ran around the bed, ran over to the dresser, threw his keys up on the dresser. I've never seen him like that before.
After that, Alan began sleeping on the floor of his daughter's room. His children were traumatized, and he did this as extra protection.
I started to see this fog starting to appear on the floor, and a voice came out of it, and it says, "You're dead."
When he came out of the bedroom, he wouldn't talk to me. His lips were blue. He was so white, you know. I tried to get him to tell me what happened, but all he did was stand there, and tears were running out of his eyes. And so I went to the phone, and I called the pastor, and I said, "You've got to come over here." I said, "Something happened, and Alan's crying." I said, "And he won't tell me what happened."
When I arrived, Alan was very frightened. He was shaking. He was visibly shaken at what he had seen. Alan gave me no indication at all that he was in any way fabricating what he was telling me. And my sense of that was heightened by the fact that I've been with people before who had described things similar to what Alan was describing. And his fear and terror at what he had seen was very similar to what I had seen before.
One night, Alan had to work very late, so he asked a relative to stay over to watch over his children to make sure they'd be okay. His relative was a skeptic. He didn't really believe in much. But later that night, something changed his mind.
What is it?
The relative came out of the bedroom, and I said, "What happened?" And he was scared. I said, "Where's the baby?" He goes, "Back in the bedroom." I said, "Get her." I said, "We are leaving this house." I said, "I am never coming back to this house." I said, "I don't care." I said, "I have had it. I can't handle this no more."
We're going! Hurry up! Come on!
The Tallmans had the bunk bed destroyed in a landfill in an undisclosed location.
After we left the house, everybody asked us, "Can this follow you?" I never thought it could happen the first time. So I don't know if this is the end of the story.
They moved away from that house. A new family moved in, and there's been no issues to this day. Aaron Mallory, Leona, Anna, Gabrielle, Buff Clary, Villison, Glitter Velpecula, Andrew Strasbaugh, Eugene R. Sano Jr., Depressed LGBT Kiwi, Vicious Trish, Hevlo, HVLO, Rattle Rabbit, Sarah, John Cummins, Crafty Andy. Thank you, everybody.